start making changes, your whole inside of your world can really go tumbling, and you have to start asking questions about why you've made some of the decisions that have led to where you are today. And that can be really, really uncomfortable for people. People can get very stuck, and it's safer in their stuckness than try to make changes.
In the face of such resistance, supportive helpers can offer nice encouragement in helping us make key decisions.
I'm really looking very broadly at a perspective in their lives that looks at all the different ecosystems in the child's life. I have them come back about 2 weeks later, try to put this all together in a comprehensive picture, and come back to them and talk about which areas in that ecosystem are most out of balance. Is it a biological side? Is it a psychological side? Mental issues? Is it more social? Is it more spiritual? Is it environmental? Are there toxins in their environment? Is there other things that are going on? I go over this with them, talking about these different ecosystems in the child's life and where we need to make the interventions.
We live in a society where there's an expert, and we read these books by experts, and they tell us what to do and how to do, and I certainly have read many of them, so by no means am I saying they're not helpful or informative, but I think we defer our own internal wisdom and judgment for what the expert is saying, and not really checking in with, but does this fit for me? Does this fit for my child? Does this fit for my family? Because maybe it does and maybe it doesn't, and I think we need more permission as a community and as families to do that. And I think, again, it goes back to checking in with yourself, and if you have a partner or spouse, checking in with them and what is true for the two of you, and what are your values, and how do you see your child, and what do you see that they need. And obviously, being a psychologist, I'm a proponent of therapy and therapeutic interventions, but for not every child. Maybe for them it's going horseback riding, or it's connecting to a creative outlet in which they have a way to express themselves. Maybe it's a combination of both, but just allowing there to be some space, and I think really beginning to slow things down, because we get so anxious and we want to help our kids and we want to do best, and parents are so well-intended and overwhelmed. And so the most important thing is to really slow things down and creating space not only for yourself but for your child and your family to be able to make a choice that fits for you and what feels best. And, by also being educated and knowing what your options are.
So a beginning point of some of these other approaches is stopping and saying, okay, I'm not going to freak out here. I'm going to consider all my options and settle on a plan and make a plan that is going to pay off long term.
While people understandably want relief as soon as possible, this does not necessarily mean they aren't willing to work toward meaningful, long-term recovery.
People like to say that Americans are after a quick fix. I used to believe the same thing until I started interviewing Americans in these research studies. I have never, not in 195 interviews with people and with individuals and families struggling with depression, met a single individual who just wants a quick fix, that is just looking for their problem to be papered over and superficially managed. The message I hear is that we do want real solutions. We do want the pain at the center of our heart for people with depression. We do want the aching pain to be resolved. We do want the condition tormenting our child to be resolved. We don't really just want a quick fix. We really want answers.
Whether big or small, life adjustments can lead individuals gradually, over time, to a better place. So it started with awareness, and once I was aware of all of the emotional and mental content that was just like sludge in my body and mind, I started to be more choosy about what I would watch on television, what kind of books I would read, what kind of people I hung out with, because I realized I got a really clear, I had a really clear sense of what that was doing to me, how it was affecting me on subtle levels. And my relationships changed, and my relationship with literature changed, and the way I interacted with media, internet, things like that changed a lot. And that influenced my sleeping cycle, and I started to rest more. And I realized that I felt really good when I would exercise. And I noticed as I was more comfortable in my body and willing to just be in it more and be present with it, I noticed what foods made me feel good and what foods made me feel a little bit sick, even if it were subtly so. And so I talk about my story in terms of this domino effect that started with just the teeniest bit of awareness, this kind of being still, stopping, and taking account of what's going on. And from there, that awareness, it started to shine into different parts of my life, and I could follow my intuition, and I just knew what needed to change. It's not that I didn't benefit a great deal from friends and mentors and doctors. They were instrumental in my own process. But I found what was so powerful for me, and what was surprising even, was how intuitively I could just assess what was happening within my own being, and how I just was called in different directions. Like, I'm gonna really focus on nutrition now. I just know that's out of whack. And I'm really going to get my sleep patterns down for the next few months. Like, phone is off at 10 o'clock. I'm in bed, the lights are out. Even if I'm not sleeping, like, I'm just going to reserve time and space for the practice of sleeping in my life. And so what starts with this teeny bit of awareness, this intention to be healthy and whole, it just starts to expand, and it starts to permeate all the different aspects of our life. And that's what I would communicate to people who are thinking that they're in a hopeless situation and it couldn't get much worse, and how could it possibly get better? Not to belittle that suffering, not to explain it away and say, it's gonna get better, kid, just, hang on. It's awful, and life can be so hard, and it's hard to be a human being, and it's hard to take on the challenges that just come up in our awareness that characterize the human life cycle. Those things are so real. And yet what's equally real is our intuition to move towards wholeness and to move towards health. And it starts with that single intention to just take a look at what's going on and start to move in the direction that you want to move in.
As people follow their own intuition, they can sense in their own situation, from their own body, what is best. That, as we've said, can mean any variety of things. Professionals are beginning to look at this same range of options. In Great Britain, for instance, they're beginning to prescribe exercise as a treatment for depression.
For my body, for me, movement is really important. I love hiking with my dogs and getting outside. Being in nature, for me, it's like elixir. It's like drinking in, health. It's just, I need it. All seasons, I'll bundle up in the winter and go walking with the dogs. I love it. So we go in the mountains, we just walk around the neighborhood. We just get out. We see people, we see nature. And I think nature is a great equalizer and helps us return to a sense of peace and stillness and well-being. And it's everywhere we look, thank goodness, it's everywhere we look.